Welcome in, latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Files on the Twitter machine. What's up, yo, Tennessee Hober?
Go Tigers.
Yeah, as you can tell by Shane's intro, you can tell by my background here, we're marching on with our fall camp preview series, and we're going with them LSU Tigers, Shane.
Let's do it, baby. And one of the things that's kind of cool is like we started out with these teams that we feel like are hot. But I'm telling you, brother, the closer we get to kickoff, the more and more I'm picking up some of this LSU steam. You're seeing it on the recruiting trail. By God, they got the number one everything coming in. You know what I'm saying? LSU is fired up. They said, to hell with baseball. We're moving on. We're ready for some football, and I'm ready to talk about some Tigers.
Yeah, they're just in such an interesting spot, Shane. I mean, heck, Brian Kelly's won 20 games in his first 2 years. He's clearly an elite coach. We forget what happened, I feel like, so quickly. But, he walked into the SEC West, the toughest division in the country, and won it his debut season. So there's reason for optimism. There's reason to question the Tigers. This is one of the hardest teams to put my finger on, Shane. You could tell me they make the college football playoff. You could tell me they barely make a bowl game, and I would buy either one. Not that I think 6-6, 5-7 is realistic or anything, but just this is potentially one of the hardest teams to figure for me among the teams that are eyeing the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean this is one of those fringe teams that you could argue can make the playoff. You could argue is going to miss the playoff. And I feel like this is more like one of those camp teams, it's either you're one or the other. There's nobody sitting in the middle saying, well, it could go either way. They're like, no, let me tell you why they're going to make the playoffs, or let me tell you why they're not. And I'm kind of in that optimistic camp. And this is one of my teams. I kind of fell in love a little bit earlier here in the offseason, but I'm very, very interested with all the additions and the roster breakdown that we're about to do. If I feel as optimistic by the end of the show.
Right, and they're also, go back and check it out if you missed our Ole Miss preview, they're kind of like the anti-Ole Miss, where they will dip into the portal, but they're more about recruiting elite players, developing them, and clearly Brian Kelly knows exactly what he's doing. So we'll start right there with Coach Kelly, Shane. 186 and 69 in 20 years as a FBS head coach. Before that, he was at, I believe it was called Grand Valley State, something like that. Yeah. He won championships at that level. If you count his, I believe that's Division III. If you count his Division III record, he is actually the winningest coach in college football right now. So again, even without that, he's outstanding. He's 20-7 in 2 seasons at LSU. Notre Dame, he was 113-40. My goodness. Cincinnati, 34-6. He took them to BCS Bowl back then. And at Central Michigan, 19-16. But I really got to hand it to Brian Kelly, Shane, because a lot of coaches win 20 games in this league their first 2 years. They're saying, well, I clearly know what I'm doing. I don't have to listen to people saying, we got to remove the defensive coordinator. We got to blow up the defensive side of the football. He nearly didn't. He nearly kept Matt House, but he made the tough decision. He made the right decision, blowing up the defensive coaching staff. And I'm just fascinated to see how that plays out on the field this fall.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to adapt or you die, and that's one of the things they kind of hit hard on him in the offseason. There were some comments he made that went viral about paying players, and we know we're at that day and age, and the fact of the matter is LSU maybe didn't have to go to the portal like they have in years past, and that's one of the things that we talk, like you said, you talk about the opposite of an Ole Miss team, a team that's been marinating, a team that's been growing. And the reason that folks are so optimistic about this season is just the fact that this is Brian Kelly's dudes. This is some of those classes that he brought in. Now we're starting to see, kind of the ceiling of this program and how far that can go.
Right. And you say adapt or die, but it sounds easy, Shane, but not everybody's willing to do it. Dabo ain't doing it. His program's crumbling. Gus Malzahn didn't do it. He's gone already. Jimbo Fisher, obviously, another one. get his ass out of here. So you get these guys, these big-time jobs, all this money. They say it's my way or the highway. But again, I just want to credit Brian Kelly for not being that way and landing defensive coordinator Blake Baker. Shane, was instrumental last couple of years at Missouri, turning around Eli Drinkowitz's program, coming off an 11-win season. Could not have done it without Blake Baker. Now, here's another interesting thing, Shane. Blake Baker was on staff at LSU in 2021. So had Brian Kelly sat here and said, let's keep this guy. But he didn't, and he went to Missouri. So he was linebackers coach, became defensive coordinator. I don't think it was ever on the table for him to be LSU defensive coordinator, but I also think it takes, a big man to sit here and say, I screwed that up. And not only did he do that, they had longtime defensive backs coach. A big reason why LSU is DBU is Corey Raymond, who he let go when he got hired at the job. He went down to Florida, recruited a bunch of defensive backs for the Gators. Now Corey Raymond's back to fix the mess that is currently DBU. So these are two huge additions for LSU's coaching staff this offseason, and it ain't over yet because they got arguably the best defensive line coach. If he's not the best, he's top 2, top 3.
Yeah.
In Bo Davis, he was at Texas last couple of years. That's why Texas was dominant on the defensive side of the ball, particularly in the line of scrimmage last season. He's worked with Nick Saban. He played at LSU. Shane, again, we love these guys that play and return to coach. He's been in the NFL, 2 stops with Saban, actually. And, so Bo Davis, elite defensive line coach. And these 3 hires alone, I think, are going to be huge for LSU.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they opened up the checkbook and said, get whatever you need, and that's one of the things I love about LSU is they are one of those blue chip programs that typically stays toward the top. But you see in years past, man, just in our lifetime, how many of these blue chip programs you thought would never change, and then all of a sudden they're in Nebraska, they're a Florida, they're fighting tooth and nail. We thought Texas, here's another one. Texas is finally getting back in the mix right now, but it was some long days, man.
Right.
There was a lot of bad coaches that came through there to get to this point. So once you get close to that top, you want to stay there. And I love the commitment that this athletic department has for this football team.
Right, and it wasn't just those guys either, Shane. Edge coach Kevin Peoples, he was at Missouri last year, so he's coming with Blake Baker. I like that. They're bringing safeties coach Jake Olson. He was also at Missouri. So I like this because this isn't, you're hiring a defensive coordinator and saying, okay, fix all this. Bring your guys that helped you. So I think the continuity, even though they're new coaches to Baton Rouge, they're not new coaches working together. I think that'll be big. And, we did lose offensive coordinator to Notre Dame. So we've got new offensive coordinator Joe Sloan, and our outstanding receivers coach Cortez Hankton is now the passing game coordinator. So new roles, new responsibilities on the offensive side of the football as well, in addition to a new special teams coordinator, Slade Nagel, who was at Tulane the last 8 seasons as tight ends coach, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. He's basically coached every position down there at Tulane, Shade. So he's staying in state, bringing in a new special teams coordinator. But that is one, again, I'm not panicking or anything, but a lot of transition all across offense, defense, special teams for LSU's coaching staff. That's something that, you got to keep your eye on at least.
Yeah, but again, too, this is a team that has kind of changed the last couple of years. So I'm not you talk about Coach Kelly, that's one of the things I admire most about him is just the adaptability, not just, what we just talked about at the start of the show, not just the office side of it, but the play side of it. He's going to get the best players out there. He's going to get the best coaches out there, and he's going to get the most out of them because he's got a track record of doing it.
Yeah. Now we get into the returning production from last season, Shane, and obviously the great news, we had the best offense in the country, Heisman Trophy winner, all these draft picks. The bad news, they're all in the NFL now. So we're 35% returning production on the offensive side of the football. That's 13th in the SEC. Only 13% of our passing yards are back. 21% of our rushing yards are back. And 33% of our receiving yards And we're bringing back 75% of the offensive line snaps, Shane. That's number 3 in the SEC. That is a big reason why a lot of people are high on LSU, is this offensive line. Maybe the best in the SEC, if not the country. So new pieces, certainly, all around the quarterback. But again, this is LSU, brother. We still got a top 10 roster. I don't care how many people we sent to the NFL. We're just basically reloading for the next generation. That'll be in the NFL in a year or two. You know what?
That's what they do, buddy. Reload, and that's why you got so many universities sitting, outside Baton Rouge saying, "Hey, man, if you can't start, come over here. You can." You know what I'm saying? So that's just the kind of talent they've always got rolling through there, and will continue. And I will say, going back on the coaches, one thing I didn't mention is, they brought back a lot of Louisiana guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes that culture, I think, gets lost in. And when you bring a little bit more of that passion, that passion for your program, I think that pays dividends, especially on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, no doubt, Shay. And obviously they're kicking ass on the recruiting trail right now. Now, interestingly, Shay, now we got the reverse issue on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, we were awful. Let's call it what it is. Arguably the worst defense in school history. But we're bringing back 64% of the production, which is number 4 in the SEC on the defensive side of the ball. So that would suggest that we're going to get a lot better. But I think you could also argue, many would, I don't want these guys back. But again, we're not saying that for these guys. But we're number 2 in the SEC. 78% of our tackles are back. 73% of our tackles for loss. That's 5th in the SEC. Also 5th in the SEC in sacks returning, 61%. Interceptions, 60%. That's 6th in the SEC. And passes defended, 70% back. That's number 4 in the SEC. So again, we got a ton of experience on the defensive side of the ball, and that's why I highlight these returning production metrics, Shane, because those don't tell you necessarily who's the best, who's the worst, but they give you a great indication of the units that will improve the most from one year to the next because of the returning production. So, I mean, it goes without saying, with the returning production, with the talent on hand, and the coaches hired, it would be a complete disaster if this defense, and not a disaster, but a shock, that if LSU's defense does not get much better.
Yeah, no, and again, I think this boils down to coaching. I keep going back to it, man. I just don't think, folks, it wasn't that LSU had terrible athletes on defense last year. I don't think that was the case at all. I think you can make an argument that they just weren't in the right place. They didn't have the right plays. They didn't have the right development. There's some of that, I think, is what's contributed to, honestly, one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in my life, Mike. I mean, it was garbage at times. And I mean, it was laughable. It almost looked like me playing NCAA. Like, I don't care. We're going to have a shootout anyway, That's kind of what it felt like. But I don't know how many times I've referenced recipes on this show, but it felt like we had the ingredients last year. We just didn't know what to put where, and it just came out like shit. So that's one thing I love about this returning production, is because, yes, maybe that defense didn't look great last year, but one of the cool things about it is I think they may be in the right place this season.
Right. And back to your point, Shane, it's almost like the old, it's about to be new again, the college football video game, where you just, you let the computer, you let your opponent just score at will for the sole purpose of racking up production for your quarterback, who you're trying to get to win the Heisman. So that's kind of what it looked like for LSU last year.
I do it on Madden now. I just simulate the defense so I get back out there. I do want the punt returns, though, because I like those.
All right, let's highlight the transfer portal, Shane. And we lost some key pieces here for LSU. Now, we've attacked it as well. But left tackle Lance Hurd at Tennessee, he's projected to be their starting tackle. He was our highest rated signee just 2 years ago. So that's a hit. Jeremiah Hughes, cornerback, he's now at Michigan State. Running back Logan Diggs, he's now at Ole Miss. So the fact he's at a rival here kind of hurts us. Offensive lineman Marlon Martinez, he's at Mississippi State. And then edge defender Quincy Wiggins. he made the mistake of joining Dion up there in Colorado. He got suckered in up there. So, again, we ain't crying over a lot of these guys. I think the tackle could hurt you, but, again, we got two of the best tackles in the SEC. So, he was really just an elite depth piece. But wait till you get to the guys we've added.
He's gonna hate that in November, when he's up there 2 feet of snow, and he could have been down there eating gumbo, without a shirt, because it's 75 degrees outside.
Yeah. Now, the guys we've added, Shane, on 3, 24/7 Sports, I don't get it. They don't like these classes. I think it's just because they didn't add a lot of guys, but I would rather, again, back to Brian Kelly's strategy, I would rather add quality than quantity, and they just don't have a ton of needs right now at LSU. So On 3's got this as the 54th transfer class. 24/7 Sports got it as the 43 transfer class. But they got some potential huge impact here, Shane, from Liberty receiver C.J. Daniels, 106 catches, almost 2,000 yards, and 21 touchdowns for Liberty. And this is a guy, Shane, I don't know if you remember this, but the Liberty coach came out and said, well, by God, we just can't match $300-something thousand, an apartment and a car like LSU. So I'm not saying that because I don't know that that's true, that really happened, but the coach did cry about it, and that gives you an indication just what LSU thinks about him, what it took to get him here. C.J. Daniels, big-time impact. I think he may even start for the Tigers, Shane. Mm-hmm. They got Xavier Thomas from Mississippi State. He was not really correctly utilized, in my opinion, at Mississippi State. 40 catches, 500 yards, and a touchdown last season. But he's also a huge threat, Shane, on special teams. 365 return yards. He had a punt return touchdown. He had a kickoff return touchdown. Another weapon for LSU's offense. I love that addition. Our guy, A.J. Swan up there at Vanderbilt, Shane.
Yeah.
He is now going to be in the mix here. I don't think he's coming in here to unseat Garrett Nussmeier. This is Garrett Nussmeier's job. But behind him, they have a redshirt freshman. So it's good to have this kind of veteran that has played in the SEC, and we think very highly of A.J. Swan. Given the circumstances at Vanderbilt, it was going to be very tough for any quarterback to succeed. But he's thrown for 22 touchdowns, 9 picks, 2,700 yards. And then we added Javar Suggs, Grand Valley State, Shane, 42 tackles, 14 and a half tackles for loss, 8 sacks in 22 games up there. Gio Paez, lineman from Wisconsin, 35 tackles in 32 games up there. Jair Brown, corner from Ohio State, 9 tackles, 3 passes defended in his 2 seasons up there. Austin Osbury from Auburn, another safety. He's played up 8 games up there. And then Jordan Gilbert from Texas A&M, a former elite recruit, played 24 games for the Aggies, 79 tackles, 2 picks in his 2 seasons up there. So, again, we didn't add a ton of players because we didn't quite need them, but I like that we're adding weapons, we're adding help on the line of scrimmage, and we're adding to the secondary, which has been, quite frankly, a disaster the past couple of years.
Well, you went up to Ohio State and got your recruit I think I know one guy that won a Heisman that did that route. So I'm not saying that happens, but no, I don't think they were having a parade over this transfer class, but there was some big gets and like you said, in places that they kind of needed. So
right,
yeah, at least I like that wide net approach for programs that got a new coach, but when you see an established coach like Coach Kelly and what he's been able to do on the recruiting trail, this is what you want, man. That's what it was designed for, just to kind of amplify a spot that you're struggling in.
Right, and it tells me, Shane, that the coaches, some of the guys coming up, they may not be household names yet, but they have confidence that they will be, that they're fits for the system, that they will be very productive this fall. So that's what it tells me. And then they signed the number 7 recruiting class in the country, Shane. That's number 4 in the SEC, and they got them a 5-star on the defensive line. Come on, LSU's going to have a 5-star lineman. Dominic McKinley, number 5 defensive lineman in the country. It's hard to imagine him not playing in some capacity for the Tigers this fall. And then they signed 19 4-stars, Shane. And these are the guys that I think will make an impact this fall. They've already been talking up this safety, Shane. Number 2 safety in the country, Deshaun McBride. I don't think he'll start right away, but I think he may be a starter by the end of the season, the way they're talking him up. Trevez Green, the number 2 tight end prospect in the country. Brian Kelly loves his tight ends. So I could imagine Green hitting the field.
Like the opposite of Mike.
Caden Durham, the number 6 running back in the country. We got a loaded running back room, but again, we can always use a running back at LSU. Mike Turner, the number 9 receiver. Tyden Singleton, the number 12 linebacker. And Kalen Billiot, the number 13 receiver. So, man, I will get to the receivers in just a second, Shay, but this is quite the collection of talent they got down here in Baton Rouge. They always got a loaded skill positions. You know what?
Absolutely, and a lot of athletes. Period. That what'd you say? 19 4-star athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some schools out there that didn't get 1 4-star. You got 19 of them. So yeah, LSU will be fine, and it's one of the things. Too, going into, what is this, year 3 for Kelly?
Yep.
Maybe 1 or 2 of them may have that impact, but you don't have to have them. Some of these schools, they have to have some of these freshmen hit,
Right, exactly. But where they're not going to need any freshmen, Shay, let's get into the depth charts, ranking the offensive position groups. Far and away, in my opinion, the best position group, probably on the entire football team, and again, one of the finest in the country, the offensive line.
Yeah.
For LSU, 75% of the returning snaps are back, led by our guy, Will Campbell. Shade. He's probably the finest left tackle in the country. He was first team All-SEC last year. He allowed a sack as a freshman, Shane. He's not allowed a sack since then. I mean, my goodness. He played 800 snaps last year. He started all 26 games. He started since the moment he got on campus. I mean, my God.
He has nightmares every night for that one. Just the one that got away.
And then next to him, Shane, left guard Garrett Dillinger. He's got 23 starts in his career. Started every game last year. 797 snaps last year. Miles Frazier, the right guard, he's back. Another start. 25 starts in his 2 seasons there at LSU. And then maybe the best right tackle in the SEC, Shade, Emory Jones, 24 starts. He was second team All-SEC last year. Loaded position group here. And we got other guys like DJ Chester, Tyree Adams, Paul Mingbe, Christian Stamps, Bo Borderline, and oh yeah, Shay, just throw them in there just for good measure. They signed a junior college guy that should add some depth here. So the offensive line is going to lead the way for LSU. Give Garrett Nussmeier time and these running backs running lanes. If LSU does big things, it's because this offensive line lived up to the hype.
Every now and then, Mike, we have a season where the offensive line is just extraordinary. You know what I'm saying? And I love offensive line. Obviously, I'm a big guy myself, so I'm a little partial to it. But I think about like A&M and the Goon Squad and all these different. It's like this may be one of those units that we're talking about all time. Like if you're picking the all-time best offensive line from this program, there's a shot that LSU has it right now. Surely they got a nickname. They got to work on it. If they don't have one right now, we got to come up with one.
Right, and to your point, one that just stuck out to me like a sore thumb, Shane. Last year, Mizzou, their offensive line was outstanding, and that was a huge reason. I know we give all the hype to Luther and Brady; they deserve all the praise, but they don't get there if they don't have that good offensive line. You know what?
That's right, man. That's absolutely right. We should just do a show with offensive linemen. Just throwing it out there. Maybe terrible ratings. We may get like 50 views, but they need the respect, Mike.
All right, next, we'll save that for another day, Shane. Receivers. Again, LSU's always loaded at receiver.
Yeah.
I don't care. They just sent 2 first-round picks to the NFL. They're still going to be highly productive down here. Led the way by Kyron Lacey. He's got over 100 catches in his LSU career, Shane. Nearly 1,500 yards, 17 touchdowns. He actually led the team, Shane, last year in yards per catch, 18.6 last season. So, yeah, again, they had some elite guys, but he was right there with them. Chris Hilton, big name in the spring. He's ready to step up. 22 catches, 415 yards, 3 touchdowns in his college career. Aaron Anderson, transfer in last year from Bama. He played in 11 games, had 2 starts, 12 catches, 59 yards. He's kind of that slot receiver, jitterbug, explosive guy. He'll be a dynamic guy. Shelton Sampson, he redshirted last year, but he was a 5-star. He's one of the top prospects in the country 2 years ago. And then, again, those transfers. C.J. Daniels, the $1 million man down there, according to Liberty's coach, whatever. Xavier Thomas, throw them into the mix. And the number 9 receiver prospect, Michael Turner. Number 13 receiver prospect, Kylan Billiott. Again, none of these guys may be household names today. By the end of the season, I bet you a couple of them are.
They will be. And that's why, a lot of people, you mentioned DBU earlier, and I think they've kind of dropped off a little bit on that one. They could pick it back up. They got some dudes, but wide receiver is the one. When I put that out there, it's like all the teams, this is the one that keeps popping up because you think of the all-time greats. Even recently, I'm talking Hall of Famers in the NFL right now, Mike. So it wouldn't surprise me if 1 or 2 of these kids aren't the same.
Right. Next, I got quarterbacks. Shane, I like this quarterback room again. Garrett Nussmeier last season was the MVP of the ReliaQuest Bowl, led a comeback win late in the fourth quarter down, I think 10 points, and they won that game on the last 2 drives. He's got over 1,700 passing yards. He's played in 18 games. In that bowl game, Shane, 395 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, 31 completions. He's awesome. Ricky Collins, redshirted last year. He was a 4-star recruit, so he's there along with A.J. Swan. And, Shay, just throw in another 4-star quarterback coming here. Colin Hurley. How about this, Shane? Again, he's at LSU. He's 16 years old, and he's one of the quarterbacks. So, to be 16 and be at LSU, particularly at the quarterback position, you've got to be a prodigy. You know what?
Mike, I'm telling you one thing, though. People sleeping on A.J. Swan. I think that we were really high on him with Vanderbilt. One thing he didn't have up there was an offensive line as he ran for his life. So having some time, he's got some mobility to him. He's a great-looking athlete, and I think with given the right opportunity, brother, this is one of those guys. I'm not saying he's going to push Garrett for a starting role, but if there is an injury or something like that, don't be surprised if there's a little quarterback controversy coming into next season.
Right, and those are the additions, Shane, that go under the radar. Even LSU fans, I bet they'd say, well, that's nice. We got Garrett.
Yeah.
But God forbid, like you said, maybe it's just a series. Maybe it's a half. Maybe it's Alabama game. He can't play the second half. He got targeted or whatever. Mm-hmm. In comes a guy like A.J. Swan, wins you the damn game. That's going to be the pickup of the offseason if it results in a big-time win. You know what?
Absolutely, man. And a guy that has SEC experience – I mean, how many of those were floating around last year in the transfer portal?
Right. Now, again, Shane likes to joke, but I don't even have tight ends last on this team. Shane, we use a tight end down here at LSU, and we're led by Mason Taylor. I ain't even going to tell you who his dad is.
Do you know his dad is? Do you know?
27 starts in his 2 seasons down there, Shane. 762 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. He's caught a pass in 16 consecutive games. 36 career of catches, Shane. 15 of them first downs. So damn near every other pass he catches, he converts to a first down, and he will always be a hero to be, Shay, because he caught a touchdown and a 2-point conversion over Alabama as a true freshman to whoop Nick Saban's ass. So love me some Mason Taylor. They also got Mark Markway. Love that name. 12 games last year as a true freshman. Here's another name for you, Shane. Apologies. Kamorian Pimpton. I love that name, too. 8 games last year, true freshman. And then don't forget the number 2 tight end prospect in the country. He's on the team, Trevez Green. So I like this unit. Sometimes we roll out 2 tight ends at LSU, and we got the bodies to do it this fall.
You like it, but they're down there at the bottom again. It's like,
no. I got one more.
Oh, who you got?
Running
Special
backs.
Teams? Running backs. Water boy, what is it?
Again, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is unfair, but when I think of running backs in LSU, I feel like, that's like world-class athlete.
Yeah.
And we haven't had that in a while. So, I don't know. We got to get that corrected. These are not bad players by any stretch, but most experienced back, Josh Williams, 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns in his career. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we got John Emery back, Shane. He's had a real rocky career there, I think is a nice way of saying it. Will he be eligible? He jumped in the portal. He's out of the portal. Former 5-star, but he has flashed. He also has 1,000 just over 1,000 yards in his career, 14 touchdowns. Caleb Jackson last year, 165 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then Trey Holly, 110 yards and a touchdown. He redshirted last year. So I'm not sitting here saying this is like a bad unit. I'm not saying it's we can't have success with these guys. But again, in my mind, I think LSU, I think a running back, it's almost like you pencil in one of these guys for all conference. And we haven't been able to do that in 4 or 5 years, it seems like.
No, that's a great point. I mean, when it's funny, I go round and round, like with running backs, I think of Georgia, I think of LSU and Falk and Fournette and, Goss and all these guys that just come through and just were world beaters. And you just thought that pipeline would never dry up. And then it did. And then, now, don't get me wrong, we've had some recruits come in and we thought, this is the guy that's going to put them. So there was some swing and misses, I feel like. But, I think behind this offensive line, how can these running backs not succeed?
And another one, I don't think you said this, the Clydesdale. Remember, even the Clydesdale?
Oh, yeah.
He was probably our last great one. You know what?
Yeah. No, I mean, they've had, man, well, yeah, bring them back. Bring them back, you.
All right, now to the defensive side of the ball, Shay. This is a little bit tougher because, again, let's call it what it is. There's not up to par, not up to LSU standard last year, but it doesn't mean we're devoid of talent or anything. So I'm going with the linebackers, of course, and it's basically because they got Harold Perkins, who, again, I don't think he lived up to the billing last year. They're playing him out of position. Some genius decided to play him as a coverage, even though he's got maybe the most dynamic pass rusher in the country. But he was still second team all SEC last year, Shane. 21 starts in 2 years, 147 tackles, 26 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. Imagine if they utilized him properly, what his stats would be. But
do you think that, let me get, and we're hoping that they figure it out this season.
Yeah.
But do you think that there's a shot that we look back at Perkins, like maybe you're watching him in the NFL and you're just like, I can't believe that dude's on our team. We did not do right by him.
Right.
Do you feel like there's a real shot that we I think of like Tennessee and Alvin Kamara and, some of these other athletes that just, they were really good, but it just felt like they were never in the right place in college.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that definitely would have happened had we brought back Matt House, Shane. But that's a big reason why Blake Baker, he's a linebackers coach. He's defensive coordinator now. We've seen him at Missouri. He likes to bring exotic pressures from all over the field. That should fit Perkins to a T. So I'm hoping that doesn't come the case. But, yeah, if they don't utilize him, he will certainly fit into that category. You know what?
Exotic pressure. I've not heard that one. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I size up a chair before I sit down, because it's about to get some exotic pressure.
Next to Perkins, Shea, we got Greg Penn back, experienced starter, 37 games, 27 starts, 178 tackles, 12 and a half tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions. So, hell of a trio or duo right there in the starters. And then how about this, Shay? This is wild. I don't know if you're aware of this, but they got 2 brothers at linebacker.
Oh, wow.
Whit Weeks and West Weeks. The family loves W up there, I guess. But Whit played in 11 games last year as a true freshman, had 49 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss. And then his older brother, West, he's played 38 games, 1 start. He's got 75 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. And let me ask you, Shane, because I know you got a brother who's, you guys were highly competitive. Kind of sounds like to me, Whit, the younger guy, was a little bit more productive than his older brother last year.
Really?
How would you take it if, I know you and your brother used to be on the same football team. If he began to surpass you, did that even happen? How would you handle it?
No. I mean, anybody that's met the fly in Hawaii knows, we are not built the same. I always say we're the exact opposite. He's tall, he's skinny,
you're like
he's
that
ugly.
movie Twins.
Yeah, that's right. I got all the good stuff. I'm the Arnold. He's the Danny DeVito. But no, he was always the fastest one, so I couldn't compete with him. I mean, up to a certain extent, I had some mobility, but then all of a sudden he just passed me. But strength. You know what I'm saying? Once I caught that little bastard, it was on like Donkey Kong. Yeah. One of the funniest parts, true story. one of the funniest parts about my brother was we used to practice long snapping in the in the front yard, So I always figured, hey, if I can't make college, doing a offensive lineman because I'm never going to be 6'5", but maybe I could be a professional long snapper. My brother ended up winning that job. So I guess in the long run, it was funny because in the high school, you're not allowed to cover up the long snapper. So here's this, 4'5", 40 guy just running down. He's almost catching the damn ball. So I don't know. That college should probably look into that. Start having some more wide receivers long snapping. So sorry, we went down a rabbit hole there.
Yeah. Well, speaking of linemen, Shane, that's where I'm going next for LSU's defense. I got the defensive line second on my unit rankings here. Savion Jones is back. 38 games he's played, 16 starts. 59 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks as an LSU Tiger. And one guy that Brian Kelly was over the moon about in the spring, Shane, this potentially could be the next star on the defensive front for them LSU Tigers, Jacobian Guillory. 39 games, just 3 starts, but 51 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. And if he's taking that next big step, again, he's going to be the starter, I would think, on that defensive line. And they got some depth in Jalen Lee. He's played 32 games with 4 starts. We've got Braden Swinson. He's played 42 games, also 2 starts, 70 tackles in his career. Deshaun Womack, true freshman last year, but he played in every game. Paris Sand, 37 career games, 59 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. And then the transfers, Javier Suggs from Grand Valley and Gio Paz from Wisconsin. And oh yeah, Shay, just throw in a 5-star, Dominic McKinley, true freshman. So this position group is an unknown right now, but there's plenty of bodies to work with it, and that's exactly where you want to be.
Is that why you have them so high? Just because of the amount of athletes we have there?
Well, yeah, that and just kind of anytime these coaches give us any kind of nugget in the spring, maybe I overreact to it, but
yeah.
I always stay very locked into what they're saying. And I know Brian Kelly he made it very evident. We've got to add people in the second portal window, and that was where the famous comments came from. So they whiffed on a couple of guys, but again, if they had landed those guys, this is probably the number 1 unit for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you. I was just curious.
Now, last and least, I guess you'd say, defensive backs. Again, I can't even believe I'm saying that with LSU, but that's where we've been, Shade. Now, we got some quality starters back, but again, these are the same guys getting toasted the last 2 years. Major Burns, 27 games, 23 starts. I think they're moving him from safety to nickel. That should help. 156 tackles in his career. Sage Ryan, 31 games played, 12 starts. He's got 71 tackles. Zy Alexander started 8 games last year after transferring in from Southeast Louisiana. So it was a big step up in competition, but the fact that he started, that's a promising sign. We're bringing back Austin Stamps as well. He played 11 games as a true freshman. Javion Tivano, 13 games, 3 starts. Jordan Allen, 11 games. Kylan Jackson, 5 games last year as a true freshman. And then they signed a guy, Shane, transfer portal last year. They were very high on him, but he got hurt in camp, never was able to play. J.K. Johnson, I think he was a borderline 5-star, played at Ohio State. Now, hopefully after missing last season, he'll be able to contribute. And he's got a former teammate down there at Ohio State now, his teammate at LSU, Jair Brown, Austin Aubrey from Auburn, and Jordan Gilbert from Texas A&M. So, and don't forget the freshman Deshaun McBride, who I told you, I don't think he'll start day 1, but I think he'll be a starter by the end of the season based on what I've heard. Number 2 safety prospect in the country.
Yeah.
A lot of talent, a lot of moving pieces, but that's kind of been the story the last couple years at LSU. They added via portal to assist, but it's just so weird, kind of like going back to our conversation about the running backs. You're used to LSU just a pipeline of defensive backs,
Right.
and it's not been that last couple of years for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to have running backs at the bottom and now defensive backs because, growing up, it was the opposite. That's exactly where you're going to find those freaks. So,
right.
And I say freaks in a good way because a lot of these kids coming through there, especially in those, I'd look at the Honey Badger just the other day. I stumbled across a video, him talking, and just the maturation of him from when he was at LSU to where he's at now. I mean, he's an ambassador for that program. I mean, they create some serious legends. So I would imagine 2 or 3 of these kids are going to emerge, and I think LSU gets back on the right track. But like you said, it's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of new names. But I think there's talent. I mean, there's talent there, Mike. They're super talented. They'll find the right group.
Right. And then last, Shane, real quick, special teams. We're solid at kicker. Damian Ramos is back, 22 of 29 kicking field goals, 132 of 134 PATs. We got to clean that up. We can't outmiss PATs, but I kid. But he's solid. And then Peyton Todd, this will be his first year punting, but
don't need him.
We're solid at special teams.
Yeah, we're good. We're good there.
All right, now for top 10 players, Shane, in the EA Sports upcoming college football video game from the LSU Tigers. No surprise, Shane. Right off the bat, left tackle, Will Campbell. Almost gave him a 99. Should I give him a 99, Shane? I was thinking 98. Let's give him a 99 because he's so damn good. I know my rule is juniors 98, but he's got to be a 99. If he ain't a 99, we don't need to have 99s in this damn game. You know what?
Absolutely. Finally, big boy getting some love.
And then Harold Perkins, I got him next as a 98 right there at linebacker. Again, if he lives up to potential, he's probably a 99 as well. Receiver Kyron Lacey, breakout star, 96. I'm giving him overall. Emory Jones, the right tackle, 94. Yeah. So again, 2 beasts at left at offensive tackle. Mason Taylor, tight end, love him, 93 overall. How about this, Shane? A little wild card here. C.J. Daniels, the transfer from Liberty. I'm giving him a 92. So we could have 2 receivers over a 92 on LSU's roster. And we just said 2 guys in the NFL. Welcome to life as a LSU coach. Greg Penn, linebacker, giving him a 91. Quarterback Garrett Nussmeier, 91 as well. Chris Hilton, the other receiver, giving him a 90, Shane. So we get 3 receivers at 90 or above. And then Major Burns, defensive back, giving him an 88. So this is a top-heavy, loaded roster that, again, they can compete with anybody in college football.
That's the beautiful thing, and we're going to get in the schedule here in a second. It's like in the years past, you could make an argument that LSU may lose this game, but I would venture to say we're going to have quite a few toss-ups coming up.
Right. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. We'll get to that in just a second. Shay, real quick, though, fall camp, biggest questions for me. How big of an impact can this reworked defensive coaching staff make? I mean, that may define the season. And I'm saying, I mean, heck, I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship. I said that last year, looked like an idiot. So I don't think I'll say that again for a while. But, if they can work some magic back there, this is a team to contend for a national championship, truly. So how does that look? How big of a step back does the offense take? Because every nice thing I've said, Shane, I think it's highly unrealistic to say they're going to be as good as the best offense in the entire country last year. They may be the best in the SEC, but even that I think is a little bit of a leap. So again, not saying they're going to be horrible, but if they're top 5 in the SEC, I think they can win a hell of a lot of games if their defense improves. So how big of a step back do they take on offense? And do they need to change anything to better prepare for season openers? That is something that I think really needs to be looked at down there, because if we lose our 3rd season opener in a row, nationally televised, man, I mean, again, we ain't find Brian Kelly, but something needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hit the ground running, and a lot of that has to do with the coaching staff. So, I mean, you got some of that switching over. You would think that there may be some rusty plays, some giving up 3 and out type situations. It's not an easy game. I mean, we're going to get to it here in a second, but it's not Wichita State. You know what I'm saying? You're opening up with another Power 5 conference team here, and I get behind that. I think for me, man, it's just kind of getting back your identity. We talked about the running game. We talked about these defensive backs. That's LSU, man. And that's what a lot of these kids grew up to. And that's what you're recruiting for right now. So, wearing that 7, that's a big deal, and usually I see it floating around back there with a guy that's going to be a future Hall of Famer.
Right. Yeah, the solution to fixing the week one woes can't be let's schedule McNeese. That can't be the solution. I don't think.
No, absolutely not. But I mean, he did try to get out of the damn game. Let's call it like it is. He got out of the Ole Miss one, but he couldn't quite get out of the LSU game.
All right, Shane, schedule breakdown. How we love to do these. If this is your first time watching one of these, win, loss, or toss up for LSU, and I'll throw up a schedule here for you. But I got a lot of games on here, Shane, that I think should be wins. Let's go through them real quick. Week 2, Nichols. I mean, come on, that's a pick your score type game. At South Carolina, that should be a win. UCLA at home should be a win, in my opinion. South Alabama also at home should be a win. At Arkansas, at Florida, and Vanderbilt at home. If you're LSU, these are the games. 7 games. Nichols, South Carolina, UCLA, South Bama, at Arkansas, at Florida, Vanderbilt. Any of those that you would not put into should be a win game?
No, I think all the ones you've mentioned should be wins.
Okay, now I've got none, Shane, that should be losses. I don't see a game on here if we're LSU that we can't win. Now here's the tricky part, Shane. I just said there's none that they cannot win.
Yeah.
But I got 5 that are toss-ups, in my opinion, Shane. So, again, you could lose all these toss-ups if something don't go right. So I go Southern Cal in the opener. I know we got no respect for Lincoln Riley and all that, but I don't know. I got a bad feeling about it, particularly with your defense and their offense. They may be able to score like crazy on you. Now, you probably score like crazy on them, but back and forth on the road, I don't know. That's tricky. Ole Miss, even though that is at home, that's a toss-up to me. At A&M, they hate your guts. Rivalry-type game. Who knows what we're getting from Mike Elko? That's a toss-up. Alabama, even though it's at home, they beat you about as often at home as they do on the road. So that's a toss. And then Oklahoma, last week of the season, that's a home game. But I got that as a toss. So I got 5 toss-ups for LSU.
Well, we've talked about LSU's schedule before, and we said that these fans are in for a ride because I think you're going to have a couple of blowouts, and we're going to get to those here in a second. But there are, like you said, some toss-up games that you could argue they're going to win, and I mean, but you could also argue they could lose. So I think there's going to be a lot of emotions tied up to this LSU football team this year, and there's either going to be a lot of butthurt fans or there's going to be a lot of prideful fans saying, hey, here we go. We got a chance to win a natty.
Right. So let's get into it, Shane. Game-by-game breakdown for the LSU Tigers. And as always, we're doing this with our purple and gold glasses on here. We're kind of, completely optimistic, best-case scenario. So let's start with the opener, Shane, and why I have this as a toss-up. I haven't looked at the spreads in a while, but I don't think this is like a massive spread. I think it's like 3.5.
Yeah.
So again, the odds makers are kind of thinking somewhat of a toss, but even though LSU's favored. But I wonder, Shane, we've talked a ton about, and we don't got to spend a ton of time talking about Florida right here, but all the pressure that's on Billy Napier and all this to win week 1 at Miami. I don't think it's not near the same level, but you can make the case to me that there's a lot of pressure, I think, on LSU to win week 1 against Southern Cal, because a lot of people look at this schedule and just like I just did and said 7, 8, 9 should be wins. But I think that all goes out the window if you lose the opener, which you've done 2 years in a row, against a high-profile game, nationally televised. Lincoln Riley, he's going to have to hear for 8, 9 months how he's an awful coach, how he's losing it. Yet all he does is produce number 1 picks, Heisman quarterbacks, on and on and on. I mean, I feel like he's going to have some stuff cooked up for a first-year defensive staff. I really strongly give the edge to Lincoln Riley and his offensive system just in that phase of the game. With all that I'm throwing that at you, would you agree that LSU is under pressure? Because, again, we think they'll win. Most people think they're going to win. But that's when you get pressure, Shay. When you lose these games, you're supposed to win.
Well, I see what you're saying, but I think there's a little bit less pressure coming into this season than years past, because you just had a Heisman quarterback. So there's a natural, that team, and this is just outsider. This isn't an LSU fan talking here. This is just outside noise right now. There are people talking about LSU, but not like they're talking about Georgia or Ole Miss or even Missouri or Texas, Oklahoma. It seems like LSU, the team that's, look how many national championships they won in their lifetime. People are kind of shitting on them right now. They're not talking about them. And I think that's a good thing. People talk about you after you open up a can of whoop ass on a team like USC, which I think they have the shot to do. But this also is a year that if you lose this season opener, you're not out either. So that added pressure that LSU's had in years past, like, damn, we dropped this one, we got to win out to make a college football playoff. So I think a little less pressure is going to be on Coach Kelly. But personally, he wants to win. Two seasons, 0-2.
Right.
Absolutely would love to have a win here.
Yeah, all those things I just said, Shane. LSU wins by 10. Come on now. Yeah. Come on now.
This is one of my favorite bets because, like you said, it is kind of close. And I'm not tipping my hat for lock of the week anytime soon. All right, calm down, LSU fans. But I do think that this is one of those games that LSU kind of wakes everybody up and says, hey, we didn't lose that much. In fact, we may have gotten better.
Right. And then week 2, come on, that's a pick your score against Nichols. So, 50-point win if they want to have it, probably even more than that. So we're off to a nice start, Shane, 2-0. But then we get into, interesting matchup here at South Carolina. I was just listening to a South Carolina guy, Shane, talk about their quarterback, Lenora Sellers, who I know he's not started a game yet. But he said he thinks this guy's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. Now, I've heard a lot of guys are going to be first-round draft picks, and then, let's just say they don't turn out to be. So, again.
Heislinsky.
Exactly. So, again, take that with a grain of salt. He's not saying today he's going to be a first-round pick, but that's the buzz. And it's not him. It's that's basically what the coaches down there are thinking. So, I think this is a unique game. I think they've already announced, Shane, that it's going to be an early kickoff. Tough place to play. Again, I think this is a sneaky game, particularly if some of these flaws are exposed week 1. But I think it's a lot tougher. This is where we really, our knowledge, if you want to call it. I don't know how much knowledge we truly have, Shane. But just we know, we talk about these teams all day, every day. South Carolina will be coming off a huge game against Kentucky, which if they win it, it's at Kentucky. That'll give them a ton of momentum. But they're already listed as an underdog. I think if we're being quite honest, we would probably favor Kentucky in that football game. So let's say Kentucky wins it. This could be a hurt South Carolina team. So again, there's a lot of factors that play into this, but I have to go LSU, but this is a classic trap game to me, particularly early in the season without knowing a ton about what the Gamecocks offense is going to look like with a new quarterback. They bring back a ton on the defensive side of the football, but LSU should win, but it may not be as easy as people anticipate.
No, that's a good point, Mike, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. This is one that you've brought up several times on this show that you don't like it as an LSU fan. You think that it could sneak up and bite them, and I see exactly why. I mean, everything you said is correct, and one of the things about damn Columbia, man, sometimes crazy things happen, and I've been on the receiving end of that one, brother. So the flip flop of the schedule, you start out a lot of momentum, USC. Then you kind of take your foot off the gas with a Nichols, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, let's go over here, let's steamroll these Gamecocks, and then all of a sudden you're in a fight, you're in a battle. So yeah, I think that it's close for like a quarter, and then LSU just beats the brakes off of them. So yeah, give me a 3-0 start here, Mike.
Yeah, 3-0 rolling into UCLA comes to town now. Again, I don't know a ton about UCLA. I know they got a new coach, but our good buddy Stephen Lasson said this is going to be one of the worst teams in the. Well, I guess they're in the Big Ten now. I can't even keep up what league they're in. But he basically said whatever league they're in, they're going to be one of the worst teams in it. So I ain't messing around with this one, Shane. I talked up Southern Cal. I talked up South Carolina. This is going to be a blowout right here. Give me LSU big over UCLA.
Steven's the smartest person I know. So if he says they suck, I say they suck. So give me 4-0, Mike.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, I mean, if it starts out this way, you see all this momentum that's going to be built in Baton Rouge. Then they'll start climbing the rankings. They'll be in the playoff discussion. Another home game, Shane, South Alabama, their head coach just left to be Alabama defensive coordinator. So I know Kane Womack, he did a decent job down there, but they did not exceed expectations last year. So I don't expect them to exceed much down here in Death Valley. So give me LSU probably by 30 points here.
Oh yeah, at least. I'd like to see that offense open up. You know, by now we've established an identity. We know if this defense is legit or not. I mean, there's been a lot of questions answered up to this point because they weren't all nickels. You know, there's some good quality opponents in here, and this is why I think LSU's getting their money's worth because we got a big game the following week with them Ole Miss Rebels.
Right, yeah, and now this may be the game of the year up to this point, Shane. College game day, SEC Nation, what have you. This is going to be one hell of a showdown. We anticipate Ole Miss will very likely be undefeated going into this football game. They essentially have 3 games they got to win, or 3 tough games. They got to win at least one of them, if not 2, to make the college football playoff. But this is going to be it, and this is going to be a revenge game. This is going to be a tough, hard-fought match. I mean, it was one of the most entertaining games last year if you hate defense. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was back and forth offenses all day long. I don't know that either unit got more than 2 stops in that football game. Should be a different story this fall, Shane. But this is a tough one, Shane. Ole Miss has only won 1 time in Tiger Stadium since 2002. So this has been a house of horrors. They've already announced it's going to be a late kickoff around 9 a.m., I think, 8:39 or 8 a.m., 8 p.m., 8:30, 9 p.m. type kickoff here. This game's going to run till damn midnight. It could be a 5-hour game with these offenses going up and down the field, Shane. But LSU, do they get their revenge? No. I don't think so, Shane. Give me Ole Miss. And maybe I'm just drunk old Lane Kiffin juice or whatever they're trolling with down there, but I really think that Ole Miss is going to be national championship type contenders, and I don't quite see LSU in that realm. However, if they win this game at home, I'll completely do a 180 on that take. But I think this will be a top 10 team versus a top 5 team, and I'm going with the team I think is a better team this fall.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is loaded. Locked and loaded, brother, and it's a scary team, and I get everything that you're saying, Mike. I just, again, when I look at this schedule, and we're doing this part of the show, I look at it as a fan, and up to this point, there's no question in my mind we could beat every team that we've had on the schedule.
Yeah,
Ole Miss may be a different tune because of like what you said, and not to mention what we've seen from Ole Miss up to this point, because by now Ole Miss 2 is undefeated most likely, and they're blowing them out. You're looking at this schedule. You talk about that. There's that tricky little Kentucky game that we discussed the other day, but you got Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, UK. These boys are rested, Mike, because they're not even playing complete games. So when they go down there to Death Valley, are you expecting them to just go toe-to-toe with LSU? And I just, Mike, I try to be optimistic here. I really am, but I just don't see the Ole Miss Rebels winning this game. Oh, man. I just, as a fan, brother, a fan here, LSU is not afraid. You just said a stat. They haven't lost down there, since 2002?
Right. One time.
One time, well, it's 20 years, Mike.
Yeah.
That's 20 freaking years. And so you're like, oh, yeah, pencil that as a loss. Hell no. Get that team off the schedule, brother. I think LSU starts out 6-0, looking good.
And Shane, again, this is something we talked about on our Ole Miss preview. Again, go check it out if you missed it. But what happens if there's adversity in Oxford?
Yeah.
What happens if they I don't think they will, but if they drop a game, if a key player gets hurt, where's the chemistry? Where's that locker room with all these fresh faces? How many guys will particularly if they lose like 2 games, how many guys will opt out or God knows what, if tune out, whatever you want to call it. I think everything's on the table for Ole Miss this fall. And, who knows? Kiffin tweets the wrong thing and all of a sudden there's a scandal or God knows. I mean, all that could happen, which to your point, I would not be stunned. I'm just going with the team that I think will be a little bit better. And I could be completely wrong. You know what?
Yeah, no, and I could be too. But again, you're predicting how good LSU is going to be or bad LSU is going to be, and how good Ole Miss will. Like, they got the pieces, I get that, but by week 6, are all those pieces as nice as we thought they would be together? We don't know that. You put together a puzzle that may be missing a few. So I'm just right now. I look at track record. I look at what Kelly's bringing back. They got it's going to be awesome. This is going to be one of the wildest games of the year, Mike. It'd be awesome to be there at this one. But I just think right now, as an LSU fan, I think we're better.
Right.
So.
And then the following week, again, we should not overlook this game. I bet most LSU fans chalk this up as an easy W.
Yeah.
On the road at Fayetteville, Arkansas here. We've not previewed Arkansas yet, but we continue to hear great things about their transfer quarterback, Talon Green. Mm-hmm. They got Bobby Petrino back to call the offense. This is I think there's something to be said for matchups like this, Shane, where technically it's a rivalry, but one school, Arkansas, considers it a rivalry, and one LSU kind of doesn't. I always like the team that considers it a rivalry. Yeah. Because they want to prove, hey, this is a game that if we win it, we can make us a rivalry. We can show you that we're a big deal. We can save our coach's job. These are the games that very, very tricky, should not be overlooked. I don't think that this is going to be, I know I have it chalked up as a should-be win, but it could be a loss, no doubt. I mean, there's a lot that goes with that, but that being said, Jay, come on, man, come on. I got to pick LSU. It's on the road, though, so this is tricky one here. I like LSU, not by a ton, but give me LSU, and particularly if they're coming off a loss, you got to make sure that doesn't beat you twice. That could also be a complication, but I like LSU at worst case scenario, sitting here at 6-1 after 7 games.
Well, and another thing too, Mike, it could be one of those games that the wheels have already kind of started falling off there. I'm not, I don't want to pile on Sam and Arkansas, but, as optimistic as I am, there's a lot of pessimistic fans and outside viewers looking at that team as potentially a dumpster fire by the end of the year, But a game like this really kind of kindles that, that fire, if you will, because if you come out here and beat them by 30, then all of a sudden you're like, man, we're not even in the same realm. I think it's a closer game than maybe what I'm kind of with you, Mike. I think that it could be a close game toward halftime, but I just think LSU has too much firepower.
Now, the following week at A&M. So, again, tricky back-to-back road games for LSU. This stretch should not be overlooked, Shane. Year 1, Mike Elko. It's very hard to predict what the Aggies will be with their staff turnover, with guys hitting the portal, with the portal additions they've made. Just a very unpredictable team. I still think A&M's like a top 10-ish type roster right there. If they're not top 10, they're just outside that.
Yeah.
And I love Connor Wigman, the quarterback. I think he could be, we did our most underrated quarterbacks, breakout quarterbacks. He was one of the 2 guys I selected. So they got a lot going for them at A&M. They'll have 100,000 strong, going crazy in the stands, doing their shoulder swings, what have you. But again, Shane, if this was Mike Elko year 2, Mike Elko year 3, I'm picking A&M to win this football game. Yeah. But what will they look like year 1? Will they still be trying to figure things out? There's a little too much uncertainty for me to go ahead and pull the trigger on A&M. I think this will be a back and forth type ball game, but give me LSU here too, Shane. Back-to-back road wins. That's very difficult to accomplish in this conference, but I think LSU can do it.
Oh, I absolutely can do it. And I'm kind of tipping my hat here, Mike. I think this next 2 games slate, they drop one. And I'm trying not to get too far ahead because we're going to talk Alabama next. I do like how there is a bye week between these 2 games, but there's a shot, man, that you're overlooking A&M, looking for that bye week. You're talking about the playoffs at this point. You're looking forward to that Alabama game, and you're just thinking, hey, A&M up and down right now. But if A&M hits with the talent that they currently have, you're losing. And so I'm going to put them down as a win here, but I wouldn't be surprised if A&M pulls off an up. It's just it's almost impossible, Mike, to go undefeated during a regular season. So when I look at this, I'm like, where's the one loss probably? I think Ole Miss is an easy answer, but that A&M isn't. And so I think it's tight. Maybe it's that game, but I'm going to, for this segment's sake, I'm going to go Bama for the first loss of the year.
Yeah. No, I feel you, Shane. You stole my thunder there because I think this will be, again, each team has 2 weeks to prepare. The SEC does that on purpose every year because they want a damn war between Alabama and LSU. The Nick Saban thing is out the door with him no longer coaching. But again, I like to poke fun and all that, but I truly don't think Bama's going to take a huge step back under Caleb DeBoer. Hell, I think he could turn out to be the best thing for him. Because he's an offensive wizard. He's barely lost any football games in his entire coaching career. It's crazy I'm not calling him an upgrade over the greatest coach of all time, but it's just different. And maybe for the pieces they have right now with a guy like Jalen Milroe, who's just such a dynamic athlete, I'm fascinated to see what he could potentially look like in this offense. But again, LSU, where are they weak, Shane? They're weak on the defensive side of the football. And you tell me Caleb DeBoer, and he's got 2 weeks to prepare with all the talent he's got at Alabama. Man, this game would mean everything to LSU fans. You want to flip this series back. You want to put the Nick Saban demon behind you. But I think Alabama wins this game. I hate to say it, Shane, even though it is in Tiger Stadium here. Give me Alabama. So that to me is their second loss of the season.
But then again, Mike, we look back. If they win this one, it wouldn't surprise me if that A&M doesn't sneak up and bite them too. So
right,
it's just I look at LSU's schedule, and one of the things I love about it, and why I'm so high on them, and maybe Vegas too, is you're looking at the 2 toughest games, Ole Miss and Bama. Each one of those, they've got a week to prepare for it. So I think the bye week placement is perfect. A lot of people want to talk about Mizzou's schedule, but LSU got a pretty nice hand here as well, and especially the swing games, the toss-up games you're talking about. Most of them are at home, so
right.
Yeah, it's going to be entertaining, but I think we drop maybe 1 or 2 during the regular season. I'm just going to go with our first loss here with Bama.
And then you got to really, really be careful, Shane. The following week at Florida, this is another one where rivalry game. LSU's owned it, won 5 in a row now. But LSU has lost games like this, Shane, coming off a Bama loss.
Yeah.
That has derailed their season to teams like Arkansas or Ole Miss that don't have near the talent they've had in years past. So that could catch you. This could be a game that saves Billy Napier. Again, it's one of those type games too. And here's something to consider, Shane. Again, we got the schedule up here. Ole Miss, Arkansas, A&M, Alabama, back to back to back to back, leading up to this Florida game. I mean, this is going to be a beat up football team.
Yeah.
At this point, and I realize there's a bye week in there, so Yeah, you do have that before Bama. But again, I think that could really take its toll. And we've already done the Florida preview. Go check that out if you haven't. But I think there's an outstanding case to be made that Florida is going to be the biggest surprise team in the SEC. Could be this year's Missouri, for all I know. But I'm not saying they're going to win 11 games or anything. But I think they take a big step forward. So this, Shane, I almost want to pick a loss here, but I'll give it to LSU, but only by a razor's edge here. I mean, this is like a 51-49 type ball game. There's a lot of reasons to like Florida in this matchup. Now, again, same thing you said about Sam Pittman. Billy Napier could be fired about a month ago, and they could be in shambles. I take everything back I just said, but I don't think that'll happen. But this is not a game, I truly don't think, that LSU fans should be sitting here today in mid-June and be saying, this is an easy win. I think this is going to be a war down here.
It's funny. You have Florida as one of your biggest surprise teams of 2024, Mike.
Right.
I would say the biggest surprise for me is if this damn thing's a ball game by the end of the second quarter. I'm right there. It's a rivalry. And there's some of the most heated games I've ever seen, but it was between these two programs. And there's years that you're scratching your head and like, I can't believe LSU's hanging into this, or I can't believe that LSU is not just running away with this thing. It's kind of crazy. It doesn't really matter sometimes about the roster dynamic or the scheduling or anything. Right. This is just an ugly game at times, which usually comes down to the wire. But sitting here in freaking June and me trying to convince you that an optimistic LSU fan is scared of the Florida Gators, shit. I got oceanfront property in Arizona to sell you, Mike. This is not a football game. LSU wins big. Already eyeing a national championship.
Now, I ain't talking Vanderbilt shit. I'm talking Florida Gators.
We got back to back, man. Back to back.
So Vanderbilt the next week, my goodness, Shay. Come on down to Tiger Stadium. We don't talk about a program that could be in shambles by the end of the season. I hate it, but there's not much of a shot, maybe less than 1%, that Vanderbilt walks into mighty Tiger Stadium and gets us a win.
For some reason, every time I think about these two, I always think about LSU coming up there and drinking all of Vanderbilt's beer, So, yeah, this is not a football game at all, man.
Yeah, and then season finales. It's weird that this is the season finale now, but in the new look SEC, trying to make this a rivalry now. Oklahoma at LSU. So, again, I think Oklahoma is being undersold as well. I think Oklahoma is going to be a good team this year. I like the coordinator changes, what I've seen from Jackson Arnold. I think Oklahoma is going to have one of the better defenses in the entire SEC in their debut season. The problem, Shane, is they'll be coming off Alabama, Mizzou, Ole Miss, all these elite matchups leading into this game, and throw in Texas in there as well. So, I mean, they have got a damn gauntlet to close out the season. And quite frankly, I think they're going to be walking into a buzzsaw coming into Tiger Stadium. I think this potentially a blowout. Give me LSU. So I'm giving LSU a 10-win season here.
Well, what I like too about this rivalry game is it could be a playoff spot on the line here, Mike. I'm optimistically got them as a 1 loss right now, but they may have 2. And for a 10-2 team to get in, they have to close out the season strong. So this rivalry game may have a lot on the line, even for Oklahoma. So I just think right now LSU got the upper hand. Too much talent, too deep. I especially on that. I just don't think you talk about offensive firepower. Some of these teams like an Ole Miss or an Alabama, I'm like, okay, they can go toe to toe. They can go back and forth. But a team like Oklahoma right now, I think they got the defense to slow them down a little bit. But how many times have we said that, with this LSU team? And next thing you know, there's 40 points on the board. So give me LSU here.
So if they do as well as you and I think they're possible, 11, 10-win type season, does that cement Brian Kelly, you think, as maybe the sport's second best coach behind only Kirby Smart?
Ooh, buddy. I mean,
because that would be
I think
31 wins in 3 seasons,
I think it's always like sexy to pick the younger guy that's up and coming, that's doing well. But, Coach Kelly, if you look at his track record, even, like you said, you take all of his games that he's won, he's just a proven winner. And, some people don't like how he's got there, but he's got there. He comes in the SEC, he plays for an SEC championship year 1. If we're talking the way I'm talking right now, maybe even you, Mike, we're talking a college football playoff spot year 3 and going into a year 4 that I think you're putting together possibly one of the best recruiting classes you've seen down there in years. So, yeah, I would definitely, I don't want to say definitely, but I would say, I would argue that he would be the second best coach. Now he's got to beat Ole Miss. That was like, because that's who I'm comparing. Lane Kiffin and Kelly, those are the ones that I kind of go back and forth. I think Sark could be there.
Yeah.
But he's still got, he doesn't have the history that Coach Kelly does,
Right. Well, speaking of Sark, let me ask you this too. If they go 11-1, I would assume that means they're punching their ticket to the SEC championship game. Mm-hmm. And let's assume that it's probably going to have to be someone they have not faced yet on the schedule. So probably the usual suspects would be Georgia, obviously, Texas, Mizzou, Tennessee. So I don't know who you want to pick there, but let's run the gauntlet then. Let LSU Georgia in the SEC championship. Who would you take in this scenario?
Buddy, again, I'd love to pick you Tigers, but I'm going Georgia Bulldogs in that scenario.
All right, how about LSU versus Texas?
Now that one I may go the opposite way. I don't think LSU, because LSU's short memory of Texas is a lot of wins or a couple of wins.
Right.
So I think they would be. I'd be thinking that they're going to have that one.
How about LSU Mizzou versus Mizzou?
I think. I mean, no, I don't think that. I don't think that. I think they were upset that it was close last year. You know what I'm saying? They expect to win Mizzou.
And so then last. And tell us what you really think here. LSU versus Tennessee.
Well, I mean, because I'm an LSU homer right now, I'm going to say no. I think it's everybody but Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, when you at the end of the day, it's the Georgia. I think it's one of those that they go in hoping to win, and the other ones they would expect to win.
Right. And then final thing here: most important games for LSU this fall to win. I feel like we're going to have some disagreement here, but I went Alabama #1. What do you think about that selection?
Alabama #1. No, I'm going to disagree, Mike. I do think that USC is important. Even though you said, and I kind of argued with you.
Yeah.
It's just you got a shot. You got a playoff team. Coach Kelly's got a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
But you drop USC, you no longer have a playoff team, because I do think realistically LSU's going to hover at that 10-2 mark.
Right.
9-3 LSU's not getting in.
Right. Well, so I got #2 Ole Miss. That's going to be critically important as well. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that selection?
Ole Miss, I got 3. I got Bama #2 because I'm kind of with you.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get that Nick Saban monkey off your back
right.
and kind of hand over the reins. Ole Miss, I've got the 3 spot just because you've got the momentum. There's a real shot. You finish October 4-0. And all of it's derailed if you lose at home and get your teeth punched in by Lane Kiffin,
Right. No, I agree everything. But I would say, though, I got at A&M as #3 because I think that is all these nice things we just said about Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
I think it all, again, we don't want to put it so much on one game, but I think all that goes away if you're losing to year 1 Mike Elko.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we'll sit here and say, my God, maybe Mike Elko is this, not the second best coach in the game. Obviously, he's not been around long enough to do that. But maybe he's the guy that's going to take A&M where we think they can go eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so there's a lot going with that game too.
No, I get you, and they're close. I told you how important I think that football game is going to be. In fact, I told you there's a real good shot not a good shot, but there is a shot that's a game you lose. and then all of a sudden everything changes. You know, Alabama gets a little bit more important. Oklahoma gets a little bit more important.
Right.
You know, everybody's got that penciled in as a victory, but you just can't do that anymore, Mike. It's not like the SEC teams that we grew up to. There was no middle. There was top and bottom. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There is a middle. There is a slew of these teams, and that's why I think 2024 is going to be so magical, because these fringe teams are competing for something that some teams have never done. We're talking about Mizzou potentially going to a college football playoff. We're talking about Ole Miss as a college football playoff team. We're talking about LSU as it could be so it's like all these teams, somebody's got to lose, so somebody's going to be pissed off at the end of the day.
Right, but on this show, we saying it
ain't going to be LSU.
But all right, hey, that's a perfect place to end this one, buddy. Again, a fall camp preview series rolls on. We got about 6-7 of these in the bank, so we're about halfway through almost. But that's going to do it, buddy, on this episode. I appreciate you for all you do, and appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. If you made it this far, as always, like, subscribe, share. That's all we ask of you. We don't ask for much. But that's all I got. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you guys. Go Tigers.
I always...